I appreciate your time. Very much appreciate your time. My name is Glyn Hughes. I am president of Mountain Management. I'm also president of CHI Memorial Medical Group. Now, some of you, so the purpose this evening is really to have you talk, provide me some input as to what you think is important as we go through this transition. I know there's probably a lot of rumors that are flying around as to what's going on. We have another session with the larger group on Sunday evening, and the reason for this group is really for me to get sort of a line of sight as to what are the key concerns and issues that you guys have when you think about all that's going on. Because what we're looking at doing is employing the CRNA. So let's kind of take a step back, I guess. There may be some rumors flying around. I've heard that there's some rumors flying around that the physicians have excluded the CRNAs in some of the deliberations that have gone on. That's not the case, because it was Common Spirit Health that I ultimately work for. I mean, I work for Memorial and Common Spirit Health. We're in deliberations with NAPA, and this is how this came about. And because of the regulations in the state of Tennessee, where you cannot employ anesthesiologists, you cannot do that. You can employ anesthesiologists, radiologists, or ED physician. Otherwise, maybe the story might have been a little bit different. That's why we're looking at employing all the CRNAs, and the physicians will create their own PLC, entity. But I wanted to get a line of sight from you as to what your thoughts are relative to what's going on. So let me kind of tell you what I have in mind for Sunday evening. So most of you probably might have heard about mountain management, or maybe most of you have not and don't know what mountain management is. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing tonight, because I don't want to bore you and go over the same thing more than once. But my intent was to kind of talk a little bit about mountain management and talk about the distinction between mountain management and the hospital. My office, by the way, and I've been with this organization actually a total of 13 years or so, I guess. So I was here for 12 years, and about a year or so ago, just over a year, I retired. And as I tell people, I failed retirement. So Jeanette Riley asked me to come back. Michael Sutton, that some of you may know or may not know, he used to be the CFO of the system, and then transitioned over to my role, which is the president of CHI Memorial Medical Group. But he recently took on the position of CEO of the Heart Institute. So Janelle asked me to come back. So that's why I'm back. I was happy to help out. So I've been with this organization a long time. Actually, have helped grow this medical group. Probably from when I first came, there were just about 100 or so providers. To now we have nearly 300 providers in the group. We employ a number of primary care physicians and a number of specialists that work with you all in the OR. We also employ a number of APPs, advanced practice professionals or providers. It's now, in the medical group, it's about 130, Robin. So we have a lot of experience in doing that. We also, again, for your information real quickly, provide revenue cycle services, meaning that we do all our billing for our medical group, our employed physicians. We also do all the billing for the Beacon Health Alliance, Dr. Colin Cherry and his group. There are about 37 physicians altogether. And then we also do all the billing for all our employed physicians within Common Spirit Health in Kentucky, and also all the physicians and APPs that are in Texas as well. So altogether, we provide revenue cycle services for around 900 providers. So, not an insignificant organization. But it is separate and distinct from the hospital. Now, at the end of the day, we are part of Memorial Health System, but we have our own entity, we have our own team, I didn't introduce Robin Berry. She's a very important part of this organization. She is manager of administration for us at Mgmt Management and works very closely with me. She's going to be kind of keeping notes for me so I don't have to keep, put my head down and make notes. But what I'm going to do is introduce you to the team and what the organization is all about, and then kind of go on from there. The goal here is to create as least disruption as we possibly can, realizing that there's a lot of nervousness that people have. I want to assure folks that our intent is to employ everybody, that there's not going to be any changes. We want to have, same conversation or better. We want to have, obviously, benefits. We feel like our benefit structure is maybe a little better than what you currently have. We're actually kind of looking at that right now to see what we have versus what you guys currently have. So on Sunday, there will be a presentation of me presenting Mgmt Management to the group, letting them know who we are, who I am, what we do, where all the practices are, who the specialists are, and who the primary care physicians and the APPs that we have. Plus, kind of take you through our benefit structure as well. It won't be minute detail, but following that, but it'll be enough, hopefully, to whet your appetite, as it were, to hopefully show you or demonstrate to you that our intent is to be very competitive in terms of conversation, be very competitive in terms of benefit, but also to create the very least disruption possible here. Let's see. The other thing we want to do is make sure that the schedules are not disrupted. I want to understand a little bit tonight who your leaders are, and I know Brett is in a leadership position. I want to understand a little bit about that and how that works within the group. So that kind of in a nutshell is what I'm going to do on Sunday evening, and hopefully what we're trying to do this evening. So please be open with your comments. I'm not hold anything against anybody. If you're really concerned about something, please tell me. This is the time to tell me, because hopefully this is a representation of the group, and you guys can tell me, what the group is thinking or how they feel about things. What else, Robin? Can you think of anything else?
Well, for those of us who won't be here on Sunday, will we be able to do a Skype thing, or?
That's going to be tough, because we're going to be in the community rooms, and I don't know whether we can actually do maybe I don't know, a Zoom from there. We have to think about that, Robin. We could do it tonight because Brett wasn't able to make it because the roads are so bad up in Dale Creek that he couldn't make it, and then Carol is, heaven forbid, in Belize. So she and Dr. Highhold are there. But let's see what we can do. Do we have a feel for how many people might not be able to participate? I'd like for folks to be there if all possible, because just like this evening, and I truly appreciate you being here, because I felt it was important for you to meet me, but more importantly for me to meet you and get to know you a little bit, so I have a feel for the group. Doing over Zoom doesn't work as well, and hopefully you feel the same way. So we'll see what we can do.
I think most people will try to be. I've only heard of a few that will be out of town because they are at planned vacation.
Already got commitments or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. Then our goal will be to try and move this process along as quickly as we can. Again, we're trying to understand current conversation, current benefits, and so forth, so we can be in a position, and hopefully soon thereafter, in the very coming weeks and shortly, to be able to provide you with an offer letter, and then ultimately you would have an employment contract. you currently have an employment contract with Napa? Okay. So it probably will look similar, not the same, but it will be probably similar because language in a lot of these things is typically fairly similar, but I don't know. I haven't seen a copy of the contract. So ultimately, you will have a copy of the contract, but I would like to get a copy of an offer letter in the hands of all the CRNAs as quickly as we can, so then you can see what the offer's like and be able to respond to that. Now, as a group, I guess you'll have to decide, because there's a lot of you, right? Altogether, as my understanding is that there's 65 FTEs, but that's not the total number of people. The number of people is more like 80 people. So trying to do something like this with a larger group of people is challenging. So we'll have to, figure out as we go through this how we get responses back from individuals and how we can address questions. I'm going to meet with Kim Steele, and Kim Steele, who is our Director of Human Resources, will be with me on Sunday. She'll be the person that will go through the benefits package. I'm going to have a chat with her tomorrow about the offer letter. So it's not clear in my own mind yet as to how we then address individual questions that people will have with that many people, how we do that through human resources. But we'll figure something out to be able to do that. Because, again, we want to be extremely responsive to you in this whole process. Worst thing that we can do is not be able to answer your questions in a timely manner. Let's see if I made some notes here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Are you being given our current salary and vacation and yada yada? Is that information available to you?
So I have compensation information, but I was talking with Kim today. She was trying to tie that back to individual conversations. So she was having some challenges doing that. So I've got to sit down with her tomorrow morning. So to answer your question, yes, I have your vacation allocation as well. I also spoke to Kim yesterday and today about that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow as well. So I do have that information, and I want to see how that stacks up with what we currently provide our APPs. And you probably know the APPs that we have working, or some of you maybe know the APPs that we're working in the hospitalist program, and that will be sort of akin to this group, obviously not the same, but it's similar. So anyway, I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding as to what you currently have, so that when we put these offer letters together, that it makes sense. So does that answer your question? So yes, I do have the information, but it's not as clear as it should be to me right.
Hey, Glyn, let me ask you a question. What is the timeline? Yeah. Because it sounds like you want to get offer letters out fairly quickly, but you don't really have a grasp on our salary structure and vacation yet. So what is you do?
Well, I have a grasp on the vacation.
Okay.
I've gotten the information. What I want to make sure is that I have that information and be able to contrast that with what we have, so I know if there's any differences between the two. I don't know the answer to that question yet. The compensation, what Kim told me today is that she's not able to track down exactly what the individual compensation is. That's what she told me, but I need to find out what she means by that tomorrow when I meet with her. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
So yes, I have.
I mean, we recently just got this compensation change. So there was kind of a big market analysis done by Napa, because these compensation changes have come fairly slow with Napa, which I think is what's kind of gutted our group over the past few years. So, I don't know, are you going to go back and look at compensation relative to the Southeast, or how are you going about that?
No. So our intent is to be able to, provide you with the compensation that you have. As I said earlier, provide you with the compensation that you have currently or better.
Okay.
Right? Now, you may say, well, what does that mean, Glenn? I don't know what that means yet, and I have to figure that out.
Okay. So then what is the time frame that you're looking at for sending out things?
Good question, Brent. So the time frame is that, I meet with you guys on Sunday. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd like to be able to say, well, next week I'll be able to give you an offer letter. Realistically, it may not be next week. It may be within a couple of weeks. That's the goal, Brent. Within a couple of weeks.
And then what is the time frame for us reviewing that, since the contract with Napa doesn't end until June? Do we have until June to sign this, since we'll still be on payroll with Napa?
You guys will be on payroll with Napa, absolutely. But as you can imagine, we can't wait until June, knowing whether an individual is going to be coming on board with us or not.
So do you anticipate
we'd
a time frame that you'll make us sign that by?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't come up with an actual date for that. It would be nice if we can do that by, say, March the 1st, because then we'll know what we have and what we have and what we don't have.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It makes sense. I also think Napa's waiting for you to come out with our contract so they can go up at Park Ridge and probably try to poach CRNAs from this group.
Brent, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I understand that stuff.
Okay.
We'll come up with something that we feel is very competitive.
Okay.
And that's all I can say on that matter right now. But so I wanted to rest assured that have you understand from me that what we're going to come up with is going to be competitive from a compensation standpoint and also from a benefits standpoint. And I think for sure, I know for a fact that we'll be able to offer you benefits that Napa cannot.
Okay.
And I'll leave that there, and we will talk about that more probably on Sunday.
Can you do me a favor and kind of describe, if people stay with CHI in this new contract, describe your day-to-day role with us as providers, as CRNAs, and what your function is. Do we call you for HR issues? Do you handle our vacation schedules to make sure what we've used and have not used is still available for the year? Kind of describe what your role is in this whole process for us on a day-to-day basis.
Good question. Typically day-to-day, I have an open door policy, but I typically would not be the go-to person. But I would absolutely be available to anybody at any time. I mean, physicians and APPs in our organization know this. I will go out to practices. Robin does this stuff for me all the time. If anybody has a question, if there are issues, or even if they just want to talk to me, I'm more than happy to go out and meet with them. But I'm not the go-to person. So we've talked about having, the way this is going to work in my mind, is that you're still going to have an extremely close working relationship with the doctors. And this is going to be critical. And, we've spoken to the doctors about this. So clearly, that relationship is not going to go away. Even to the tune of the clinical management component of it, even the day-to-day management component of it is going to be called by the physicians, just like they do now. That relationship should not be disrupted at all. Now, there are things that also need to happen that perhaps the doctors are not able to address. The HR kind of questions, PTO, what about my contract? I have a question about this and that. So our thought is to look at hiring an individual, probably at a director level, that will work directly with you guys. I know that there's a gentleman now, John, somebody is it?
John Craig?
John Craig?
John Craig?
Is that, okay.
He's our our current practice manager.
Okay, yeah. So this individual would actually just work similar to a person we have working with a hospitalist group here. We have Tiffany Henninger, and she's a clinic administrator, and she works directly with the hospitalist group. And there's also another person in the hospitalist group as well that works with that group. Because of the size of the group, we feel that absolutely need at least one full-time person to be able to do that. So we're looking at hiring that individual. Now, I was going to actually ask you this evening, so should we do that? What kind of individual, what kind of background would that individual need? Now, I don't envision that person would be a CRNA per se, but it would be an administrative individual. So, bearing that in mind, what kind of individual, what kind of background do you think that individual would need to be able to, meet your needs and be able to interact with you on a day-to-day basis? What I don't want to do is to have somebody come in and the learning curve for that individual to be like this. Now, obviously coming into a new organization and they may be new to the organization, there is a learning curve, but they don't need to be understanding absolutely everything. So given that, what kind of individual do you think we would need to?
I defer that to Brett. You've worked so closely with them over the years.
What's that?
I said I defer to you because you've worked so closely.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It depends on what they're going to do. I mean, so will that person be doing our payroll every 2 weeks?
So we have, and again, I go through this on Sunday, we have a complete payroll department. So that's just for mountain management. Krista Dew is the director of finance for us. So she has a team that does all the payroll. And we have Kim Steele that you'll meet on Sunday. She heads up human resources, is involved with recruitment and all the other HR kind of functions. We have other folks that we have IT, IT folks, quality folks, and what have you for the rest of the group. So we have a lot of folks like that. But this individual would be sort of responsible for the day-to-day management of non-clinical kind of issues.
So recruiting and that person.
They wouldn't actually do the recruitments, but they would coordinate that. Absolutely.
So what do you mean by
do
non-clinical issues?
Well, I don't envision that this individual would be a clinician.
Okay.
All right. So they're not going to talk to you about clinical issues in the OR or interactions that you may have with one of the clinicians that you have an issue with or something like that. They're not going to talk to you about that kind of stuff.
Okay.
You'll be talking to the physicians about that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Non-clinical issues are HR kind of issues. You need additional resources for something. I want that. I don't work in the side, so you're the experts. I'm not.
So they're going to be kind of our middleman between your HR
Correct.
person, your finance person, your recruiting person.
Correct.
So they're basically going to be our person we call to get to everybody else in your office staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And they will be a go-to person.
Okay.
Are you looking at John Craig to be that person?
I don't know, John. What we would do is to post the position so anybody can apply for that position. And typically, probably what we would do, and typically what we do is for all, these kind of level positions, when we post them for practices or groups, we have the providers be involved in the interview process as well. So typically we would have maybe 2 or 3, I don't know, up to you, right? How many people you want to be involved in the interview process. And then I'd probably be involved and maybe a couple of other people be involved in HR. But we typically always involve the providers in making those kind of decisions. So we don't want you working with somebody that you can't work with.
Would that include the doctors making those decisions?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. Again, we want the doctors, and I've had this conversation we're talking with a group of doctors now about their professional organization, because we have to now have a contract with their professional organization to provide services to the hospital. So, I've personally said that we want them to be as closely involved as they are currently with you in the day-to-day management of the program. So absolutely they need to be involved if they want to be. Our physicians in the rest of the medical group, some want to be extremely involved in this kind of stuff, and others do not want to be involved.
Being the CRNA liaison, right? The docs won't be going to this person.
The docs won't be going to this person, but they'll interact with this person. There may be a need to interact with this person.
Right. But
Just like we have with hospitalists is not a good example because our hospitalists and the APPs are employed by the organization. But if there's a need for the physician to interact with this individual, there's no reason why they couldn't interact with the individual. But it's really for the CRNAs.
Will they be based out of your offices
No, they'd be based wherever we can, as close as we can get them to you. I don't know where that is. They don't need to be physically separate from the CRNA. So I don't know what's available in terms of offices and all that, but they need to be just like we have the hospice, we have Tiffany, and I forget the name of the other lady. Yeah, anyway, so they have offices in the hospital over here, and they work directly with the hospice group. So they would be located here somewhere in the hospital, but I don't know where it might be available.
Are you opposed to it being a CRNA level type person handling those things? Or do you not think the salary would be high enough to warrant that?
No, I was going to say, don't take offense to me saying this, but we couldn't afford to pay a CRNA salary for a person in this kind of a role. I'm not envisioning that this is a clinical role. So it'll be a non-clinical role, and it'd be paid as a non-clinical position. Does that make sense?
Would they be making any decisions whatsoever about our schedule structure or productivity within our schedule?
No. Productivity, I guess, don't you govern your productivity?
Well, I hope I do. And that's one of the big factors that keeps the CRNAs with us.
Yeah, no. So here's my philosophy with our providers. And I always say this, I want you to run the practice, wherever that is, with the hospice group, or whether it's one of our other specialty practice or primary care practice. I want you to run the practice as if it was your own private practice. So you're the expert. I want you to do that. They're not going to tell you how to practice medicine or how to practice being a CRNA. Does practice medicine cover that? I guess it does.
Sure.
I guess one of the fears we're kind of getting to is that looking at somebody coming from the outside and just having been at Memorial for 24 years and watched what has kind of occurred over time to their hospital staff in the OR, it kind of worries us a little bit because none of us have been hospital employed ever before. And we see
you're not going to be hospital employees.
We're not.
I have to make that you're not a hospital employee.
Okay, so they have no governance over us whatsoever then.
Yeah, so you have been an employee of mountain management, and I made the clear distinction here that everything is mountain management.
Okay.
All right. All of our APPs are employed by mountain management, not the hospital. It's not the hospital that manages anything within the physician enterprise.
Okay.
Now, I report to Janelle Riley, and that's about it.
Okay.
I interact with the folks in the hospital because they are my customers and I am their customer.
Okay.
But you will not be employed by the hospital. This is a mountain management employment situation.
So what would be our chain of command?
So you currently have, I'm not sure how your leadership, so I made a comment earlier. I understand, Brent, you are a lead chief CRNA.
Chief CRNA, I do that. So currently we have a chief CRNA that handles kind of clinical issues, Julie Haar at Memorial. I do the scheduling for everybody. And so that's kind of the way it's set up at the moment.
Okay, and there are two. So there's yourself and
one other person that handles kind of clinical issues around the hospital with staffing when they need supplies, things like that.
Okay, so who do you report to now?
I think that's one of the concerns we've had as a whole is that we are really just run by the physicians, and there's not been much CRNA leadership in any decisions along the way, and
which has been frustrating.
even for Brett to be in his chief role.
Historically, they do not like us, even a chief lead CRNA, to be in on their board meetings to help with decisions they're making with CRNAs. That's been an angst for years. We've asked to have myself in those meetings, even if I had to leave at certain times when they were discussing finances and those sorts of things, but they never would enable that to occur. So,
okay.
And I think that's a big deal, is to have somebody who is a lead person that actually can handle issues and bring it up to, if it's the physician leadership or even you now.
Yeah. So I would encourage that kind of leadership structure. Okay. Right now, we have. I'll give you an example. We have MHPF, Memorial Health Partners Foundation, which is the CHI Memorial Medical Group. That's the other name for it. I know it's confusing, but then we have a board for that organization, all those 270 providers that I talked about, and we actually have an APP on the board. I guess we started having one, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
No, it's
So
been
long
about
ago that?
7 years.
Was it really?
Uh-huh.
Time passes. So, because we feel that our APP population are extremely important. Okay. By the same token, the CRNA population is going to be extremely important as well. So I would encourage, and we will have a leadership structure. I'd be looking for you guys to let me know what that structure needs to look like, whether it's one individual, that's a chief or a lead, whatever we call that individual, CRNA, that would lead the group. In other parts of the organization, I should also point out that we have an APP council as well, both for the for the APPs in the hospital and also for the APPs on the outpatient side as well. So they have
just APPs that form that council?
Currently, yes, APP. And CRNA would be APP as well as an advanced practice professional or provider. So, I mean, you guys will be invited to participate in that council, but that's for the entire organization to have input into the operations of the organization. Just like we have on APP, that's a member of the board, the MHPF board. But I would, given your druthers, what's that structure need to look like? What's it need to look like?
I think we're a completely different entity than the nurse practitioners, and I think although we are both advanced practice nurses, we're not the same in the board. And so,
Given that, yes, okay.
Brett and all of us should make the decision on who that person should be. And it shouldn't be the docs.
Maybe it needs to be
I think there might be a little dicey relationship with the docs at the moment. I realize that they're doing their own private thing, but there's a little more blood in the water.
Okay.
So I think that you and us should probably decide who.
All right. I don't have a problem with doing that. Now, I will tell you this. I will always be transparent with the doctors and say, this is what we're going to do. But I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. The more you know me, the more you know that I'm very upfront. I'm not going to have any hidden agendas. So I will always let the doctors know what I feel and what I think. And this will be no different. But they're very much our partners, right? We work very closely with the physicians, and we want them to be still extremely involved with the program because you guys work so closely together. So there's not a separation from that standpoint, but there would be from a leadership standpoint for the CRNA group, because you'd be employed by mountain management and not by the physicians or NAPA. So I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I just think it would be a better relationship for us and us with the docs if we had a choice in that matter, that it wasn't their choice of who was going to be doing that for us.
No.
But
Many years
us
it's
picking
been,
that person,
their choices have led us down many different roads, and we'd like
and
to.
they're not always
Okay.
It should be our choice.
All right. But does anybody feel any different? Do you guys feel the same way?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Okay, so, I don't have a problem having the conversation with the physicians, say we're going to select leadership for the CRNA group, and this is it. And that the physicians don't have a say in that. They'll be informed as to who that is based on selection that's been made through the group. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. So in terms of, again, what other levels of leadership do we need within the group? Because it's not an insignificant size of group. Do you feel that let me ask you a question. Do you feel that there's sort of adequate communication within the group right now? And if not, how can that be improved?
It could definitely improve.
Well, I think our structure doesn't promote good communication because of how close ranks we have been. It's the anesthesiologists who dictate what we do.
Okay.
And so they decide like Brett said, we're not, he's asked to be on the board. I know myself as a leadership position for another facility have asked to be, privy to some of the talks where it pertains to CRNAs and have always been excluded. So it's been asked multiple times. So when you have that kind of disconnect between allowing an open communication and leadership and allowing us to communicate with our fellow coworkers, then it's created some animosity as far as communication goes. There's not a trust level at all. So that definitely would be something that needs to be improved and just basically start from the ground up, because we have none of that.
I think you'll really find that you have a voice here. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, we value the APPs and we value the CRNAs that work for the organization. So absolutely, our mantra is that everybody needs to have a voice in the organization. We try and do that with our APPs. Now, obviously, I'm not going to tell you, is that easy to do at all times? No, because you have some strong-willed physicians as well, right? I've been doing this stuff a long time too. So I'm not going to be naive, but still, there needs to be a separate and distinct organization, distinct structure, but there needs to be unified working relationship.
And we also have leadership meetings with our practice manager, which I assume this person would kind of act as a practice manager.
So how do you communicate now amongst the group? Text and all that, but do you think
I think it's pretty haphazard. I mean, some people come through me, some go through Julie Har, some go straight to the physician. So there's a lot of different channels by which people, and partly is because our group is so big and we had so many other facilities, that you may not see people on a day-to-day basis based on schedules and where you're located. So, this being pulled down into just a Memorial Hospital and Hickson also will help streamline some of that. But you're right, a central communication process is probably pretty good to have, at least within a corporate structure kind of flow sheet, so everybody knows how that's supposed to go.
Right. So what we've done with the hospitalist group, and this will be a little bit different, but what we've done with the hospitalist group is that we've set up, and I think they call it an advisory group. So they actually elect certain hospitalists and APPs to be a part of that sort of advisory group, and they serve for a period of time, and that's the kind of not a leadership group, but it's like an advisory group, and then information is disseminated back to the larger group by the practice manager or the director, whatever you want to call that individual. So I would see something similar. Obviously, physicians wouldn't be involved here. We're talking about CRNAs. So perhaps you have a group this size that would represent the CRNA group, and then we figure out how we disseminate information back to the larger group, so that we keep everybody as much as possible updated on what's going on, the decisions that need to be made, have been made, those kind of things. What's the hospital doing? You need to know what's going on with the organization, this hospital, because it affects what you do. And another, what's happening at the Georgia hospital. You need to know that stuff. So you can't do that typically with a larger group unless you have a big Zoom meeting or something. And we do that with our medical group as well. Twice a year we have a large group meeting. We actually have it at the Embassy Suites out there off of Charlotte Road. And we have all kinds of different programs, but all the doctors and APPs come together and we meet and have a big meeting one evening. Couple of times a year, and we can do that kind of stuff as well. And you'd be invited to all those things, in addition to any meetings or groups that you have within your own CRNA group as well. At least that's what I envision happening, and there's no reason why we couldn't do that. But I'd be looking for input from you guys as to how to structure that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What other? Getting close to the witching hour here, because I don't want to hold you too late here, because it's late enough in the evening. What other things, concerns do you have that I should be aware of? I understand the general concern right now with the transition or what have you. Hopefully, I'll be able to set your mind at rest a little bit by, what we talked about this evening, but and then some more on Sunday, and of course we'll have more dialogue after that as well. But what other things that you feel that I need to be aware of that would affect this transition, successful transition, I guess?
I think the huge thing that we're all worried about is, and probably on Sunday you're going to be overwhelmed with, is our compensation package changing, even from 401k to our PTO days paid off, our pay, our CME money,
Overtime.
whether it's going to change now or next year or the year after that,
Yeah.
and how that's going to be looked at. Are we going to be compared to a nurse practitioner? Or are we going to be compared to other
No.
anesthesia providers?
No.
And then I think just the day-to-day interaction of the OR, we get the docs will still be our boss. We will still function under them overseeing our care, or whatever. But are Sherry and Jeannie and Gina, are any of them gonna have hands-on to anything that happens to us? Because in the past, it kind of feels like our relationship with all of them is very poor.
Right.
Anytime anything happens in the OR, it's anesthesia's fault. And that's fine if we're private, but if we're mountain management employees, that might not be a bit over. So we don't really want to deal with them.
Right. I don't know all the politics there. I've heard some of this stuff. We will absolutely be your advocates. No question about that. We are currently with physicians and APPs that work for us. We will address, and as we have done, I was just talking to our vascular surgeons the other day, and they had issues with the OR. So we met with the folks from the OR, and I said, we talked about how we were going to rectify some of the issues. I can't promise you that we'll be able to solve all the world's problems. I'm not going to, sit here and say that tonight. But we will absolutely be your advocates. No question about that.
A lot of concern, is that the board runner, the OR board runner, Jordan or Jeannie, coming around and saying, that case isn't covered, and trying to manage CRNAs without knowing what each of us are capable of doing. Not everybody does these cases. We just want to make sure that it's not going to be them trying to step in, because now we're kind of under the memorial umbrella, however you want to say it.
No, that's a good question. I don't have a full understanding of that. So I guess I will need to understand what that is and how it impacts you. All I can say is that we will be an advocate for you. And I will certainly have a word with Jeannie, and I'll have a word with, I don't know the name of the other lady, was it?
Jordan is a guy, I think.
Okay. And Sherry as well. I've already had a conversation with Sherry.
Typically now that doesn't happen. They don't try to do it because the docs do it.
Yeah.
But now with all of this, they might try to.
Yeah.
But we don't answer to them.
We don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't understand anything that we do, and although they might act like they do, when it comes down to it, they don't know everybody's abilities, and it would be a liability thing for them to try to manage us.
So I would see that the lead, whatever we call the individual, the lead CRNA would be involved in that kind of deliberation. The practice manager or the director that we select would be a part of that deliberation. I may need to be a part of that deliberation as well. And again, we would be advocates of yours to try and solve any issues there are. I can't comment on the examples that you've just cited, because that's not what I do day to day. So all I can tell you is that we would try and work through those things, as you've been employees of mountain management versus the hospital. Now, where I can affect change, as much as possible, I'd say yes, we could, but there may be things that I can't. I'm not going to lie to you either.
When you're looking at the package with the individual that you mentioned, the HR,
Kim? Yes, Kim.
To discuss what our letter will be.
Yes.
I do think many of us are concerned that the PTO for a nurse practitioner or another APP is very disconnected from ours. Our PTO is high is, we enjoy it. It's high and we like where it is, and it matches the anesthesia work. It does not match the nurse practitioner.
I've seen it.
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand. So one question I do have about that, because it wasn't clear to Kim or I. So do you have a certain allocation per year, and you have to use it or lose it, or are you carry over? What's the deal? What's this?
So there's a allocation each year, but they're based on what level of CRNA, whether you're flex or fixed. And we have 3 different levels we have 4 different levels, but 3 of the main levels. We have, flex with call, flex, and then we have fixed. Each of those are allocated a certain number of PTOs to start the year, but there's also longevity tiers that each CRNA gets to increase that PTO over time. Yeah. And so, the PTO is a little bit higher for our group relative to the rest of the region, but that's been based out of necessity because we've never been fiscally, from a salary standpoint, as competitive as the rest of the region. And that was what we used quite a bit to attract new CRNAs and talent coming to our group.
I see. Okay. So Memorials as well, and Common Spirit Health has different tiers of, after so many years, I can't tell you off the top of my head what they are because I don't know. But we do have that tiering as well. So that's good information. What about any carryover?
Yeah, so you get one carryover day each year, 1 PTO day. You get paid out for whatever PTO days you do not use.
Yeah.
So if you had 5 PTO days left, you can get paid for 4, carry over 1. I would like to see that changed if possible to where we could carry over a week at a time if necessary.
So what is the purpose of that, Brent?
What's that? It allows if somebody has a big trip or wants to use in a separate year, they can use that additional PTO day to do that.
Flexibility with sick family.
Yeah.
All right.
Because our PTO it's all lumped in one. We don't have separate sick days or anything like that. It's all one thing. So.
And we meet staffing needs by limiting the number of people each week that can be on PTO. So.
Yeah. Okay. What other concerns? I appreciate your comments, Philip. What other concerns do I need to be aware of?
Concern question. Specifically with mountain management, can you discuss a little bit of the hiring and firing processes, and especially with this transition? I believe the wording that Sherry and Matt Walsh both used was any contract clauses notwithstanding, specifically speaking to the buyout within our current contract with NAPA on individuals who are here. Are we all going to currently be employed, or is there going to be any sort of cut downs, or is everybody going to be guaranteed employment as are currently employed?
The goal is to employ everybody. Absolutely. Did that answer your question?
Sort of. Can you talk a little bit about the hiring?
Hiring and firing?
Yes.
It's probably not going to be much different. If you do something egregious, then we have a disciplinary process. There's typically, if it's particularly egregious, you might be fired straight away. You're drinking on the job, you're going to be fired straight away, probably.
No metrics.
Yeah, but typically it's a counseling, written warning. I think, what do they call it now? Different levels. Come on, Robin, help me out here.
I'm thinking.
But there's
different classes.
Yeah, progressive disciplinary action. We can provide you with that information.
What do you mean by metrics, though?
It's certainly not going to be performance-based, turnover time, or outcomes.
Well, so if you're continually tardy coming to work, then that will probably lead to some sort of written warning or something. So they have, human resources have, details that you can perhaps ask Kim on Sunday. She'll know a whole lot better than I will. But it's not going to be any different, really.
But you're talking production?
Mm-hmm.
Really? You have production metrics?
Turnover times with.
Oh, okay,
staff,
okay.
That tends to be.
So you're penalized if you don't?
No, I'm asking.
That's-
Not now.
that's-
Oh.
We're asking if that will be
And the OR staff, they,
I ask you a question. Why would we do that? Tell me
We've
why
heard a
we would.
lot about a productivity with primary care physicians and all of that, and them having to see more and more patients, be more and more productive, all this productivity stuff that's been put on these providers. So we're wondering if that's going to be
And
somehow
also OR staff.
and
as well.
OR staff as well, and somehow translate to us
Okay.
at some point.
Because sometimes what we do has to slow down in order to.
Yeah, your patient's not
safely-
breathing in
Do it
recovery,
safely.
you have to make sure and stay and
Yeah.
monitor them. And, you know, there's a whole litany of reasons why you might not be able to turn over fast. But we're just curious if that will ever be those,
I don't see a scenario where that would happen. I really don't. Again, I'm not close enough to it to understand all the sort of idiosyncrasies, I guess, but I don't see it changing. Absolutely not.
Glyn, are we considered hourly or salaried employees?
Hey, that's a good question. What do we consider our
Their salary.
salary? Yeah.
Are we,
Yeah,
so,
their
so the
But we also have-
typically in anesthesia with our group, you know, we're going to get paid for 80 hours regardless. So we have a base salary that leads up to our basic salary structure. And then anything over that is paid at a premium rate. So,
Yeah. So just like we do for the hospitalist group, you know, we have additional shift rates and all that kind of stuff. We may not call it overtime, but it may be called something else, like additional shift pay or something like that. Is that what you're asking?
no, you know, so
we're
like say we work 68 hours in a 2-week pay period, we're still going to get paid for 80. That's our base salary structure. Is that the way you understand it?
The way I understand it, I'm trying to still figure out all the different schedules that you have, the shifts that you have. But the goal is to keep it exactly where it's at right now.
Oh, okay.
So
Even the overtime structure?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know how much overtime is worked.
Okay.
I don't know all that detail, but
Okay.
I see no reason why we change that, because we understand that, that, you know, this is different. This is different.
Yeah,
to what
absolutely.
Else, you know, all the other areas that we have.
Yeah. I think it can be a very challenging payroll process.
Well, I've spoken to Krista, our CFO, about this, and told her that the payroll component will be challenging.
It's
for
very,
us.
it's
You know,
very
you have-
challenging.
The hospitalist group, they have multiple different levels of different shifts that they have. So we've been able to do that, and we'll be able to do this as well.
Yeah. Well, if you ever
We have
need
a
it,
lot-
if your
we have a
payroll
lot
person
of-
ever needs assistance, I'm more than willing to sit down with
Yeah,
them.
absolutely. We will reach out, no question. Absolutely.
Are you looking to hire full-time, part-time, PRN?
So as I understand, you have all the above right now, right?
We do.
So we'll do the same thing. You know, as I understand it from the physicians, you need all these folks. You need the full-time people. You need folks to be able to pull in when you need to pull people. So just like we do now for our other practices and the hospitalist group, we need to have all different levels of folks. I don't see that changing at all.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you familiar with the dynamics between the other facilities too in this anesthesia practice?
A little bit. I'm getting to know it, but not extremely involved with that. But I've heard some of the issues.
Are you willing to hire everybody in anticipation of losing possibly some people to Park Ridge as well as maybe Cosmos going independent?
Yeah. So hopefully we don't lose people. At the end of the day, obviously, you know, what I am interested in doing is covering the services that Memorial has. I mean, that's the prime goal here. Primary goal for us within Mountain Management in this relationship is to provide services through Memorial, just like we provide hospitalist services to, you know, through our hospitalist group and our primary care and specialty services.
Yeah.
So that's the goal for us. I'm not in the business of covering other hospital
Sure.
services for them.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can tell you that right now.
Well, let me ask you
But
this.
then again,
Say we have some people that do go ahead and sign the contract since it sounds like it's going to be out fairly quick, but decide that it's maybe not a good fit when June comes around. What is their obligation in terms of letting you know they want out of that contract to go to another facility in town?
So typically with our contracts, it's a 90-day out in the contract. I don't know what your contract is right now.
It's 90 days. Yeah.
And
It's 90.
90, yeah. So I don't think it's going to be less. Our physician contracts are 90 days. I don't see it being any less than that. Now, if somebody's got a real issue, then maybe we can agree to dissolve the relationship.
I got you.
By mutual consent, Brett.
Sure.
And we've done that kind of stuff, but hopefully we don't have to do that.
Is there a non-compete to where we can't go and work for like a Park Ridge or a Cosmos or a surgery center that's local?
Again, back to my earlier statement, my goal is to cover, our goal will be to cover services from Memorial Health System in our hospitals. We're not in the business, not with our current, this medical group that we have employed physicians, it's been around since 1994. We're not in the business of employing physicians or APPs to go and work somewhere else. So now, I understand anesthesia is different.
We do a lot of moonlighting.
I understand our physicians do moonlighting as well. So, clearly we need to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. But if we left our contract because we just weren't happy and served a 90-day notice, could I then go over to Park Ridge if I wanted to without a non-compete for a local facility?
So yet to be determined.
Oh.
My guess is that there's going to be some sort of non-compete component in the agreement.
For that 90-day period, though.
Well, I don't know yet.
That's why I love it.
That'll be a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand. I mean, that's not a final word. I'm just I told you I was going to be forthright.
Yeah. Because some of us would like to moonlight at other facilities, even locally during our full-time employment. But if we did not want to work for Memorial, most likely most of us want to stay in town to go to another facility because there's a lot more options than there used to be.
I understand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options, not just for CRNAs, but for a whole bunch of people.
Correct.
So, yeah, I'm not poo-pooing the idea. So,
Okay.
all right. We have 25 to 8. I'm more than happy to stay if you have questions, but I'm also want to be respectful of your time as well. Is there anything else that